And welcome back to the Limelight Highlight, the podcast that highlights those making a positive impact in the world and bringing their stories into the limelight. As always, I'm your host, Jonathan Rosario, and I hope everybody had a great and wonderful weekend or week since the last time we've talked. I wanted to get into some of the things that we're going to be going over, but before that, some good news. The government shutdown is no longer shut down. They opened it back up, so that's always awesome. I mean, we don't have to worry about that anymore, for now anyway. But I wanted to get into some of the stories that we left off with last week. We're going to talk about that Buddhist poker player, that 86-year-old cancer survivor, and what a Vietnam vet left behind after being told he only had 4 months to live. All that and more that's all what we're going to be getting into. But before we do all that, I kind of want to just go over some things with you. I just want to start by saying thank you everybody for all the support and the love you've given me. It has been, I wouldn't say overwhelming, but a lot more than I thought. At first I wasn't sure if this thing would get traction, but people really enjoyed all the positive things, and like I said, a lot more than I originally thought that was going to be, but that makes me feel super good. A whole lot better about continuing to go forward and promote, share, and shout out and spread all things positive as much as I possibly can, so you guys can in turn do the same. And not to leave anybody out, but if you've listened to this podcast before, I'm from Philly, so I gotta show love to the Block is Back. Once again, if you listened previously, then you know all about the Block is Back, and if you haven't, I highly recommend you go back and check out all those dope podcasts that we had with those guys. But the reason I bring them back up right now, and I'm talking about them, is January 29th, which is a Tuesday, starting at 5 p.m. They'll be hosting their Feed the Block event, which is located at Carmela Playground, 2100 Wakeling Street. So if you live in Philly or the tri-state area, I highly recommend you hit these guys up, see how you can help, or simply attend, and get that good deed in before the week goes out. I will help promote. They're doing a ton of promotion, so go follow them at The Block Gives Back on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm not sure if they got a Twitter, but they're a great organization that I had the pleasure of helping donate and meet and talk about everything they're doing on the podcast. So as I said before, go check those guys out. And with that, let's start the show. Now, our first story is about a man named Scott Willenbach from Canada, who's also a Buddhist. If that isn't weird enough, he's a poker player. And according to the story, he fell in love with playing poker in 2010. And for those of you who are into the poker world, you can win a lot of money. And at that point, the most money he'd ever won from a game was about $72,000. Nothing to laugh about. That's a lot of money. So he entered this online championship pretty much. And after winning that online championship, he landed a seat at this tournament. For those of you who are into the poker world and gambling world, it's a Bahamian tournament that's in the Bahamas for those. And if you're familiar with it, it's hosted by the Poker Stars Caribbean Adventure. I don't know anything about that, but maybe some of you do. Anyway, it's a huge tournament, and he placed third and then won $671,240. That's a lot of money. Now, any one of us would probably keep the money. But even though gambling goes against the teachings of a Buddhist, he basically does something that falls in line with his teachings. He gave all that money away to charities. One of two of the charities that they listed in the story, because I'm sure there's plenty of them, was Oxfam. Now, I never heard of Oxfam before, and I don't know exactly what it was, so I had to Google it myself. And according to Google or Wikipedia, whichever one I got the source from, Oxfam is a confederation of 20 independent charities focused on alleviating global poverty. If there's ever a goal that is people would say is unattainable, I would say that one. Hopefully, I pray that it's not unattainable, but it's a pretty egregious goal to go for. And there's 20 independent charities, a confederation of them. I thought that was pretty dope. The second charity that he gave money away to is Doctors Without Borders. That was a little more familiar, but for those of you who aren't familiar with Doctors Without Borders, they're basically an organization that provides medical aid in over 20 countries. And all the people who help are volunteers. So he gave away $671,240, just to recap. I don't think all of that money went to just those two charities, but they went to all different types of charities. That's worth mentioning. And he's a Buddhist. But he doesn't plan on stopping his poker playing. He loves the sport, I guess. So he's continuing to compete. And now he's competing for $1.5 million. I don't know about you, but I look forward to seeing where else that money goes. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be given away as well to a bunch of charities. Now, on to our second story. Remember that 86-year-old cancer survivor? Well, this lady, her name is Pat Anderson. She lives in Escondido, California. Escondido, for those of you who don't know where that is, it's about 40 minutes away from San Diego County. It's pretty close. It's about the same thing. So this lady is the founder of this organization. It's a pretty funny name, called the Sisterhood of Boobless Wonders. You see where I'm going with this, right? Now, just stick with me. So Pat Anderson was diagnosed with breast cancer at 74. Super late in the game. But like any other, like a lot of breast cancer survivors, she had to undergo a mastectomy. And during her recovery, she was given a lot of people during recovery from mastectomies, they're given these silicone prosthetics to wear, I guess, inside their bra. I don't know much. This is the first time I'm actually hearing about it, so maybe you guys know more than I do, but I guess it's just inserts to put in her bra. But according to her, they didn't feel good. Like they were hard, they were heavy, they made her back hurt, they were uncomfortable, and they didn't fit right. So that'll lead to a bunch of issues, some self-esteem issues. For you got to think, you're growing up your whole life having the body that you have, and then all of a sudden going through this serious surgery and none of your clothes fit you anymore. It's just a lot to get used to. So basically her daughter sent her a link to this website. Her daughter she's a fiber artist. I guess fiber is the type of material that they use. And Pat Anderson herself is she makes her own clothing as well. So she's pretty good, and she knows how to design and do things of that nature. So she sent her this link to this website called Knitted Knockers. I know these are a lot of funny names, but it's a pretty serious topic. Now, this organization works with knitters all over the nation to make breast-shaped bra inserts. Pretty much perfect match, you would think she found a solution to her problem. So she joined the group and she started making hundreds of these inserts. But she didn't like the material they were using because she said they formed this ball-like shape and it didn't look natural. So that's when she founded the Sisterhood of Boobless Wonders. And she created these fiber-style inserts she calls busters. And the reason she's being highlighted today is because she knits these busters at her own expense. She buys all the material. She sits at home and just knits these things all day long. And she does this for absolutely nothing, free of charge. People send her letters thanking her, for everything she's doing, and they send her like tons of money and donations and checks. And what she does, she doesn't keep any of it. She uses some of the money that they send her for like postage when she sends out these busters. But other than that, she takes whatever's left over and sends it to Sharp's breast cancer program. For those of you who aren't familiar with Sharp, it's basically a hospital. I don't know if you consider it a chain of hospitals, but yeah. So, excuse me. So she's just been doing this for the past few years consecutively. So I just thought that was awesome that we could highlight her for that. And just a thank you, Pat Anderson. I'm sure you changed a bunch of people's lives and made them feel a lot better about themselves. I mean, that's just that's a big thing to do. And then she's 86 on top of that. Like, I just think that's awesome. And our last story. So I mentioned a Vietnam War vet who only had like 4 months to live, right? This guy name is John Beale. And he had some serious health issues after he got back from the war. So I'm talking about the Vietnam War. So this is a while ago. And when he got back, he had suffered 3 heart attacks within about a year. And he went to the doctors, they basically diagnosed him and told him, yo, you only got 4 months to live. Can you imagine after going out and experience Vietnam War? Like that's some serious stuff back there. Surviving to come back home only to have 3 heart attacks and the doc telling you don't have a lot of time left. So the doc basically told him, look, there's nothing you can do. I'd say find a hobby to get your mind off it. That's basically what the doc told him, So Beale, as stressed out as anybody could be, I imagine, he needed to clear his head. He was walking around and he walked down to the creek, and there's a creek in Texas called Ham Creek. For those of you who live in Texas, I'm sure you know where that's at. He noticed how dirty, polluted the water was. There were dead fish floating around. The water was yellow from a nearby sewage plant. The surrounding area had just broken cars and rotting debris, and it just covered the creek. It was disgusting. So I guess from watching, him going there and trying to clear his mind, he just decided to find a new hobby, and that hobby was to clean up the creek. So he started removing garbage and old pipes that were causing the fish to go belly up. And as big as a job that was, he never stopped. Even after being told multiple times by different people that he'll never change the creek. I mean, it's one guy, big ass creek, you know what I mean? So after years of clearing the creek and cleaning the creek and working at it, Ham Creek is now flourishing with fish, clean water, and tons of greenery surrounding it. Well, John Beale died in 2006. And as sad as that is, remember, he got diagnosed within a year after coming back from the Vietnam War. He lived 27 years longer than the docs gave him. In the years after his passing, they basically honored Beale's They honor Beale's hard work by continuing to maintain the area and carry on his legacy of keeping the creek alive. Now, I thought that was a crazy story because you got to think this guy basically was just told, look, you ain't got a lot of time left. You're done. He preoccupied his time. He legit got a hobby. I guess that's the best advice the doctor gave him, was to get a hobby, clean this creek to the point where it's unrecognizable from how it was before in a good way. And even when people told him to stop, he didn't stop, or that it was going to make a difference. This one person did. I mean, I'm sure he had help too, but I thought that was worth noting. Now, that is it for all the news. My sources, as always, is goodnewsnetwork.org. Go check them out. Donate if you want. They're where I get a ton of my news from. Good news anyway. It's the Good News Network. As well as the San Diego Tribune. The story about the cancer survivor is from San Diego. As I said, Escondido, same thing. And this week's Limelight Highlight Nonprofit of the Week award Super long, but we're winging it. I'll come up with another name. If you guys got a better one, let me know. Goes out to San Diego Veterans for Peace.